Move over, Richmond. We have a new action track. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jet. Welcome back to episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. We kick off NBC's portion of NASCAR with the debut Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway, and boy did it give us a show. We had a feeling there was a sense of unpredictability with this race, with the tire management after what we saw in practice. Will we see something like what we saw at Bristol? What is going to happen? What we saw was a combination of great racing, long replay runs, some strategy involved, tire management, great coverage, and overall a pretty good start for the second half of the season. Stage 1 saw a very interesting mix of characters. It was no surprise to see a driver like Kyle Larson that was up front leading laps. He started on pole, but you did see some other drivers that showed some muscle that we weren't expecting. A driver like Josh Berry, who had a great car tonight right from the get-go. He was up there in the top 5 making passes, showing how good his 4 car was. Justin Haley and Chase Briscoe also had a very strong start to the race. We also saw very quickly how good tires can be. That was a big question with this next-gen car and with this track. Would tires actually matter? Again, practice maybe saw matter too much. We saw a guy like Corey LaJoie who crashed on lap 5 when he spun, entering turns 1 and 2, put on a new fresh set of tires and drove his way from the back all the way up to the top 20. So that kind of proved to everyone that, hey, you can make some serious ground with these tires. But we also saw a combination of drivers that stayed out on old tires and be able to hold their ground. For example, after AJ Allmendinger had a right front tire go down on lap 52, that set up a restart. Daniel Suarez and Brad Keselowski, they stayed out, while LaJoie and Bubba Wallace, they took just 2 tires. Suarez and Keselowski, they started the race, but the next time by, they were no longer 1 and 2. Larson just instantly took the lead from those drivers. Now, they were able to hang on. Larson won stage 1. Daniel Suarez held on for 3rd. Keselowski held on for 8th, while LaJoie got 7th, and Bubba Wallace, I think, was 17th. So it was a combination of you can make ground with these new tires, like what Larson did to Keselowski and Suarez. But with the old tires, you can also hold your ground if you don't abuse it too much. Now, stage 2 saw a different influx of characters because Kyle Larson, he came back on the pit road near the beginning of stage 2 because he thought he had a tire issue go down. That sent him all the way to the back, and that brought in a guy like Ryan Blaney, the outside pole sitter, to restart the race and was the leader for majority of stage 2, while Larson was trying to work his way back up towards the front. In the meantime, we saw a bunch of tire problems ensue, and a bunch of also different types of contact of drivers running into each other, or drivers having issues. Like Eric Jones had a tire go down, actually had smoke coming out of his car. We also had Noah Gragson, John Hunter Nemechek. They made contact on a restart. Gragson spun, but he saved it, managed to keep it going. The restarts were pretty chaotic, much more chaotic than what I thought it would be. But there was an incident that kind of changed how the race would take place for the end of stage 2. A caution came out with around 23 laps to go in the middle of a pit cycle that saw Daniel Hemrick hit the wall. He had a tire go down, hit the wall, kept going, but NASCAR threw the caution. This is another example of consistently inconsistent by NASCAR, because Eric Jones, a bit earlier, like I mentioned, had a tire go down and was smoking on the backstretch, but that was no caution. But Hemrick, who hit the wall, kept going, no smoke, no nothing like that, he brought out a caution. Again, doesn't make sense, but this happened in the middle of a pit cycle, so drivers like Brad Keselowski and Bubba Wallace, who stayed out banking on a caution, they got that. And on the next restart, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who stayed out during that pit cycle, Bubba Wallace and Keselowski, they pitted at least, so they were able to still be ahead of the other drivers. They trapped a lap down, but Stenhouse stayed out. Byron was to his inside, and coming off of turn number 4 on that restart, Byron slides up, bam, hits the 47. They wash up, go by, and Larson just says, okay, thank you very much. I'll just take those 2 spots, and I'm going to go on to win stage 2. So Larson swept the first 2 stages. But then, of course, with Larson winning, he pitted to get ready for stage 3. And that is when we saw big trouble for the 5 car. Because of how pit stops cycled out with everything like that, when stage 3 began, Larson was a bit further back, while up front was drivers like Chris Buescher, Todd Gillen, and Josh Berry. On lap 220, Daniel Suarez got loose coming off of turn number 4, hits the 5 car of Larson. Larson then tries to save it. He then hits Denny Hamlin. They both go into the wall, and that basically ended both of their drivers' day. Larson would actually go behind the wall to fix some more mechanical issues. Denny Hamlin, they were horrible. Let's be honest. They were horrible the entire day. That just added more insult to injury. But Larson had, in my eyes, the fastest car. And another example of Larson pushing it too much, because he had a rocket And going into turns 3 and 4, he made a move to make it 3 wide in the middle between Suarez and I think Brad Keselowski to his outside. But Larson made a move to put his car in a position where he didn't need to put it. He put him in more danger. He put himself in more danger by doing that decision. And that is another thing about Larson. It's what makes him so entertaining to watch, but it also sees this. You see this happen where Larson puts himself in situations where he doesn't need to be, where it's like, dude, you had the fastest car, relax, get into a rhythm. These restarts are always chaotic. Just avoid the fire and go. And then you can make your move. But, knowing Larson, he's going to be aggressive, and that will sometimes bite him. And it did just that because, again, he had the fastest car, and he would end up, I think, finishing 34th as a result. But with Larson out of the race, new characters come in. Ryan Blaney and Josh Berry, they come into play. Josh Berry was leading, but behind him was Chris Buescher, who was starting to fall back as those two were battling pretty aggressively for the lead between the 17 and the 4. Very entertaining to watch. But then a little bit later on, much later down into that stage 3 event, Chris Buescher cut a tire down, right front tire, I believe it was. He hit the wall. He brought out the caution. And I believe that was the last caution. On pit road, Ryan Blaney would get off of pit road first with 2 tires. And somehow, with all the talk about tire failures, tire management, on 90 some odd lap, 2 old tires, Blaney was able to hold on to win the race. I mean, he had company. I mean, he had William Byron and Chase Elliott on his bumper, on his tail. They're about within a second from the 12th car, but Blaney was able to use his car, push it to the max without stepping over the line, was able to use just enough of his tires, also with help from clean air and using the traffic to his advantage. He was able to hold off the 24 and the 9 car to go back to victory lane for the first time in 18 races to score his 11th career Cup Series win, leading the most laps, and most importantly, becomes the 10th driver to qualify for the NASCAR playoffs. So let's take a look at your race results here. Ryan Blaney wins, William Byron in 2nd, Elliott in 3rd, Christopher Bell in 4th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who started 35th, finishes 5th. Absolutely incredible run for that 47 team. Joe Logano, much needed nice run for that 22 car, finishes in 6th. Josh Berry with, I think, his best race so far of his Cup career, of his young Cup career. Great job for that 4 team, ends up in 7th. Bowman with a quiet 8th place, and Daniel Suarez, nice to see him back in the top 10 and 9th, and Brad Keselowski rounds out the top 10. Ross Chastain in 11th. How about Todd Gilliland and Justin Haley? Carson Hocevar, I mean, 12th, 13th, and 14th. Great runs for those 3 drivers. Martin Truex Jr., who did not have a good car all day. I guess you could say 15th place is a win for the day they've had. Noah Gragson, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Austin Dillon, and Harrison Burton, the top 20. Some other notables like Tyler Reddick in 22nd. Denny Hamlin, who he started in the top 10, or I should say in 12th place, I believe, but boy, did his car suck. He immediately went to the back in a hurry, was 1 or 2 laps down just based off of pure pace before that Larson incident. Somehow, he finishes 24th. Ty Gibbs, 25th. Other notables like Chase Briscoe in 28th after a strong start to the race. Then you see also Kyle Larson, 34th. Now, Kyle Busch, he finished 35th because late in stage 3, he hit the wall and he came onto pit road with what he thought was a tire issue. They changed tires, went back out, but then he said, no, it's something different. Much bigger issue with the car. They looked at it, went to the garage. They were done for the day. What Busch said was, quote, next gen parts. Don't know what that means, but according to the NASCAR app, it said a water pump. Don't know what that means, but something mechanical. Took him out of the race to finish 35th, and AJ Allmendinger, who brought out the 2nd caution when he hit the wall, finishes in the 36th position. Let's take a look at the point standings. With 9 races to go in the regular season, Chase Elliott becomes a new regular season points leader, 8 points ahead of teammate Kyle Larson, 38 points ahead of Denny Hamlin in 3rd. You see Ryan Blaney in 6th place, now colored in green. 10 drivers are currently locked in with wins. Martin Truex Jr. stays in 11th plus 122. Just lost, I believe, 1 point compared to last weekend at Sonoma. Ross Chastain, he moves up to 12th plus 71. Gibbs plus 70. And Alex Bowman plus 66. They are safe at least for 1 to 2 races. 15th and 16th remains the same. Buescher plus 27. Bubba Wallace now, I believe he loses 2 points. Now is just plus 6 above the cut line ahead of Joey Logano. Kyle Busch minus 31. He falls to 18th. 19th still is Chase Briscoe minus 44. And Todd Gillen, he's now in the top 20 minus 97. Let's talk about what are my thoughts on this race. I give this a 7 to 7.5 out of 10. I thought this was a very, very solid race, a very entertaining race. Like I said, it had a lot that I wasn't expecting. A lot more passing than when I was expecting, because there were a lot of drivers and a lot of like, oh no, could this be a one-lane racetrack? Are we going to see, a tire blowout shit show? Like, a lot of bad stuff was happening, and ended up being a really great race. Sold out crowd, great atmosphere. I mentioned, the pit strategy that was going on. Great tire management throughout the race. You saw a lot of drivers in different strategies that were, doing different things. Not as much of comers and goers, which is why I give it a 7.5 out of 10. After a while, it kind of spread out and, everything kind of stayed the same. But we did see some passing take place, saw some great battles. And I must say that Iowa, based on this race, as much criticism as they've got from the repave, I'm one of them. I criticize them because that repave looked atrocious. It worked. I mean, it produced some really good racing. So I got to give a shout out to Iowa. And honestly, it's the new action track. I mean, when I think of Iowa, I think of just like a bigger Richmond, but honestly, it's better than Richmond. I mean, Richmond has been very dull in terms of the racing, the on-track action. I mean, yeah, you do have the tire management, you do have that in play, but Iowa had the tire management and the racing. So we have a new action track, I believe, and it's Iowa. But the big winner, and I gotta give a big tip of the hat, is to NBC. Boy, did we miss you. I gotta give a big tip of the hat to them, because I don't think we realized like how bad we had it with Fox. I mean, one race with NBC and it's night and day. First off, 3 boxes, all showing battles. You never saw that with Fox. 90% of the time, it was always on one car or the leader and it zoomed in. Fox, or I should say NBC, used a helicopter cam. They used that. They had the multiple boxes where they had different battles all over the place. They didn't show the leader unless it was necessary. They were showing battles for 6th, 15th, 20th. They were showing battles all over the track. The announcers, Rick Allen, Jeff Burton, and Steve Letarte. It was different not having Junior there, but I kind of liked it because it allowed the broadcast to, I think, breathe a little bit more. I do have a feeling, though, that, it was weird for those in the booth because they are so used to having Junior there to have it just be a 3-man booth. It's going to take some getting used to, but I kind of like it because, again, it allows the booth to breathe a little bit more. You don't have to talk every second. Sometimes it's nice to let the picture breathe for a little bit. So I enjoyed the booth, thought they were informative. The entire broadcast itself was very informative. They used the cameras to their liking, the product placement, the commercials. When they used it, it wasn't really in your face. It wasn't obvious. Not like, when Fox had that Toyota all-out thing. The commercials and the product placement was done at a minimum. It didn't take over the broadcast. If they missed something, they showed it to you right away and explained everything to you from start to finish. They did a nice little thing where they had this all access with the 20 team of Christopher Bell and the 7 of Corla Joy, which I thought was a nice little addition to the broadcast. Overall, they smashed it. They smashed it out of the park. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are some things you can maybe complain about it, but in terms of the grand scheme of things, overall, this was a great broadcast, I thought, by NBC. And oh man, I wish we could have them for the entire year. I wish we could have them for the entire year. IndyCar fans, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Now let's talk about some of the drivers. I mean, let's start with Ford. Ford, it seems as though they got their stuff on the short tracks and 1-milers. I mean, Gateway, Team Penske showed up, and same here tonight. They showed up except for Austin Cindric, but almost all the other Ford drivers. I mentioned the 12 and the 22. They both had great runs, obviously with Blaney winning, but Stewart-Haas, Briscoe, he had his moment in stage 1, but Josh Berry, like I said, he had the race of his career to date. He had, I think, a top 5 car, maybe not a race-winning car, but he flexed some muscle. He was up to 5th, 4th, 3rd, challenging for the lead at some points earlier in the race. I mean, he had a really good car, and it showed the potential that Josh Berry has. If you give him a good car, he can show it, especially on the short tracks like Iowa. So that was really, really fun to see. Toyota was odd to see how off they were. I mean, only 2 Toyota cars in the top 15. Christopher Bell 4th and Truex in 15th. Bell was really the only one that showed, I think, real speed. Truex was off. Hamlin was garbage. Gibbs had his problems. really, Bell was the only one that showed speed. Even the 2311 cars. I thought Tyler Reddick, who finished, I think, in 22nd position, I expected a lot more from him. I thought he would have a much better showing here at a track like Iowa. But it was odd to see how off Toyota was. Chevrolet was there, but wasn't the usual suspects. I mean, you expected a guy like Larson there, but I mentioned some drivers that had some really good runs, like Ricky Stenhouse, a 3-time Iowa winner. Shouldn't be a surprise, but considering the equipment he's in, I don't think a lot of people expected him to be that strong. Suarez finishing the top 10, great run for him. And nice to see William Byron back, because the last few weeks, Byron has been non-existent. He just hasn't been in the picture compared to the incredible start he had this season to start the season. This was the first time in a while we start to see that 24 car show up. And of course, the 9 car of Chase Elliott. Once again, another great run. I mean, he's having, like I said, a Kenseth-like season, just knocking off top 10s. And at the moment, he's being rewarded for that, being the regular season points leader with 9 races to go in the season until the playoffs. So yeah, overall, not much to complain about. I thought this was a great debut, a great first showing for Iowa. And overall, I'm satisfied. Satisfied with the race, very satisfied with the broadcast, and I am looking forward to New Hampshire next Sunday. But what are your thoughts on this race? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? Until next time, my name is Jet from MDK. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.